Sarah Toyoshima comes alive with the rhythm of samba, the dance of her Brazilian homeland. But this celebration is not taking place in Brazil. It's in Japan, where hundreds of thousands of Brazilians have lived for a quarter century. Sarah finds herself straddling two cultures.
Não me sinto japonesa, me sinto brasileira mesmo, mas por morar bastante tempo aqui, eu já considero como se fosse meu país, né?
Brazilian-born Carol Shibukawa came to Japan with her family when she was just 8 years old. But unlike Sarah, she has decided to try to fully integrate into Japanese culture, despite facing serious discrimination from an early age.
People look at me like I was not human, like I was an animal. The other child always look at me strange, and well, they said bad things about me, and I was bullied because of the color of my hair or my weird nose, or well, because I am Brazilian.
Japan is famous for its one-culture society, but in reality, around 2 million foreigners call it home. Many of them are like Carol and Sarah, Brazilian-born, whose parents brought them to Japan because their Japanese heritage made them eligible to seek low-level work in factories. 25 years later, Japan has become home, but they are still stuck in the factories. Carol's entire family was born in Brazil. Her mother, stepfather, and 2 half-sisters. Her stepfather is a Japanese Brazilian, making him and Carol's mother eligible for factory work.
Well, my mother has a very crazy work. She was working to 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Some days I don't see her. We don't have more, well, communication.
O trabalho aqui no Japão é muitas horas, como fala, muitas horas.
É longo.
É muito
Corrido.
É corrido, mas é cansativo. 12 horas dentro de uma fábrica praticamente é um dia todo, né? Quer dizer, você não vê nem o sol lá fora. É uma jornada de trabalho de 30 dias corrido. E o descanso é muito pouco.
When I first saw Japanese factories, it looks like some military companies.
Factory work is harsh in Japan, but for Carol's father, it was a step up from his life in Brazil.
E no Brasil, como eu não tinha muito estudo e a família pobre, então resolvi vir para o Japão, né? Tentar uma vida melhor. Só que a minha vinda para cá foi para ficar 2 anos só. Eu falava assim, ô Bacairó, aí nós falava arigató, né?
When he started working at a factory, the other Japanese people said "bakayaro." It's like idiot, and because he couldn't understand, he just said "arigato." Thank you. Yeah, it was difficult.
Her stepfather's difficult life is part of an historic pattern. His grandparents immigrated to Brazil from Hiroshima after World War II, but they were not alone. Many Japanese had been going to Brazil since the early 20th century in search of better economic opportunity. By the 1980s, the tide had shifted, and it was Japan experiencing a booming economy and severe labor shortages. The nation turned towards descendants of Japanese living abroad to help fill low-level factory positions.
These workers fill the jobs at the bottom of hierarchy of employment. Highly insecure, highly unstable, low-paid, so-called low-skilled jobs.
Yoshihiro Takemura is the head of the Hamamatsu Intercultural Foundation, a resource center created to help foreigners adjusting to life in Japan. With limited funding and no government support, however, Takamura said their outreach is severely limited.
日本の国では移民という言葉自体が、まず使われませんが、政府は極力避けておりますね。
そうですね。
そこに現実と随分大きな齟齬があって、外国人集中都市会議というのはそこで地方政府の方から
迫られて、もう国の政策を待てれないんですよね。もう地域がもうどんどんやっていかないと追いついていかないっていうふうな状況の中で今まで来てるんで、やっぱそこのギャップっていうのは国の考えとはすごくズレを感じるとこはあります。
Lack of support from the national government means no basic rights for factory workers like Sarah, the samba dancer from the beginning of the piece. Sarah was 8 when her family came from Brazil, just slightly older than her oldest daughter is now. Her parents were able to find work in factories because Sarah's grandfather was Japanese. Though she was unable to speak the language, they put her into a Japanese public school.
Como eu não entrei desde a primeira série, entrei na terceira, né? Então eu sempre estava atrasada, né? Para aprender assim nos estudos, né? Os professores não pegavam tanto no pé assim de estrangeiro, né? Então, se a gente não quisesse ir, então para eles não fazia tanta diferença assim, né? Porque a gente conseguia dormir na aula e ninguém falava nada.
Frustrated, Sarah quit school after junior high.
Comecei a trabalhar, né, em fábrica, fazer.
Before she knew it, she found herself a single mother with 2 young daughters to care for.
No meu trabalho na fábrica, eu ganho 950, algumas fábricas não aceitam muito quem tem filho, né? É bem difícil para quem tem filho, ainda mais mãe solteira, né? Conseguir emprego aqui no Japão.
Her boyfriend Alex is from South Africa.
In Japan, time counts, I think, more than anywhere. If you miss 3 days at work, it's already a lot of money gone.
Sarah's experience with the Japanese school system is all too common for immigrant children. In fact, they are not even required to attend school.
They are welcome to come, but it's not considered to be their rights. The Japanese state do not force them to attend.
Frustrated parents formed schools that follow the Brazilian curriculum and are taught in Portuguese. But these schools have their own challenges.
ここというか、ここの保護者は、この保護者というか、割と自分の、仕事の関係で引っ越すことにそれほど、悩まないというか即決してしまいます。現実的なことを言うと、ここを卒業しただけですと、日本で働く場合は工場が多いと思います。
Kids who grew up in Japan are culturally Japanese as well as culturally Brazilian or Peruvian. You know, if they come earlier in their life in Japan, they grew up in Japanese culture. They may be very isolated from the Japanese schools and friends, but they become Japanese kids.
Eunice Ishikawa was born in Brazil, but she came to Japan as a college student and is now a university professor.
文章にあるのにないから、その場合最悪の場合にはその部分を全部削らないといけない。それ証明できない。
Her 2 children were born in Japan. Biologically, they are 100% Japanese. They even have Japanese passports. Still, they are treated as outsiders.
They don't consider my son and my daughter to be Japanese because I'm not born in Japan, and my husband also. I learned how to live here, but I don't know if my children are going to learn how to live here, treated as a foreigner, even they are born and raised in Japan.
During the 2008 recession, thousands of Brazilians and Japanese nationals lost their jobs. Many became homeless. In a desperate measure, Japan attempted to alleviate the nation of some of the foreign population by offering $3,000 plus airfare to leave the country and never seek work in Japan again. Many Brazilians did leave, but Carol's dad stuck it out despite losing his job.
O trabalho é caro, o trabalho tem que ser o primeiro lugar, porque o ser real, a comunidade japonesa não vai me dar o dinheiro. Eu vou ter que ir atrás do trabalho. Então, quer dizer, a minha vida mais, ultimamente eu penso em trabalho, né, para a família.
Que vê que a gente é de outro país e não já fica meio quer manter distância. Não, eu me sinto às vezes triste, mas por eu estar em outro país, eu sei que o direito é deles, então eu abaixo a cabeça.
I don't agree with my mother. In fact, I can't agree with her. Everyone is human, so everyone is equal. I don't want to work in a factory. I want to go to a school and then work in another place, but not in a factory.
Sarah's struggle to succeed will be harder. She has started her own business as a makeup artist and hopes to one day put factory work behind her.
Na verdade, eu queria conseguir me manter só com maquiagem, né? Conseguiria, não sei, dar uma vida melhor para elas, né? Mas ainda tá muito no começo, né? Então, para isso eu tenho que trabalhar em fábrica e final de semana em dois, no caso seria em 2 trabalhos, né? Sustentar nelas, né?
With a record low birth rate and high aging population, many believe Japan may once again turn towards foreign workers to save its labor force.
外国人との共生なくしてやはり、日本というかもう発展というものはないというのは思います。なんでこれはもう必然的なことではないかなと。なんでそういった共生っていうものは考えていかなければいけないことだなっていうふうに思います。
And that may make Sarah, Carol, and their families necessary, if not equal, members of Japanese society.